The more and more I see information about inflation circulating on the web, on the news, on social media, I can only imagine how many people are feeling. A recent survey brings light to this as many Americans are exclaiming that they are living paycheck to paycheck. Did you know that through a few changes, this doesn't have to be you? That's right, no matter where inflation takes us, we can survive it and come out of this without completely emptying our emergency funds with just a few changes. The thing is, these adjustments don't take you earning more income. At the end of this episode, I want you to feel confident in the weeks ahead as we have no idea how high inflation could go. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror. Where future success is reflected in our knowledge of fixing the one thing we can control, ourselves.
Hey, what's going on? Hopefully everyone is having a phenomenal weekend. We are wrapping up a whole entire moving process. If you've been following, we have been moving. We are finally getting completely settled and into our new home. So it's great. More importantly, I'm finally getting a nice little setup going. So if you, like I said last week, if you've been with me throughout this entirety, you know that it's been a struggle. But all in all, we are finally getting done. Thank you for joining me today on the Financial Mirror as we continue to improve the one thing that you can control, yourself. If this is the first time that you have joined in, don't forget to hit the subscribe on YouTube to be notified of all the new episodes as they release. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform of your choice, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave that 5-star review, and those go a long ways in moving this up in people's search criteria. And if you are on Apple Podcast, please leave a written comment, as that truly helps the algorithm in getting this message out to more and more people. So, inflation is affecting everyone. Let's be honest. Inflation is not just a temporary thing. It's going to take a little bit of time. I know a lot of people out there, depending on where you look at your news, you've probably seen that that people are not really wanting to define this as a recession, or maybe they are using the word recession. It doesn't matter. I spoke on it a little bit last week, but what I want to talk about today is this idea that this inflationary period that we're going through, whatever you want to call it, a recession, just high inflation, whatever you want to call it, it's currently making a lot of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. The consumer price index is currently at 9.1%, and you can only imagine how this is going to affect a lot of people. For those who don't know, the consumer price index, or the CPI, as you'll sometimes see it referred, it's just a variation. It's a percentage or variation of how prices paid by consumers for goods, how they've changed over time. So if you're looking on the screen, I pulled this from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a great resource for you if you are trying to keep up with inflation. But it's broken out by category, and that's where this information is coming from. It's 9.1%. That's where I got this information. So with this change, it is definitely affecting Americans. It's definitely affecting how people are spending their money. Their money is not going as far. So if they were, spending $3,000 a month in expenses, now they may be spending $3,500 or $3,300 or whatever the case may be. But those couple $100 is truly a impactful thing for people that may or may not have already been a little tight on their money. So we finally, we speculated this, we thought this, but we finally are getting somewhere where we now have some data, some proof that this is actually affecting Americans. So Lending Club did a report, they did a survey, and they found out that it is in fact affecting Americans. A lot of people are now living paycheck to paycheck. Roughly 157 million adults are living paycheck to paycheck. That's 61% of Americans. Just to put that in perspective, a year ago, we were sitting at just over 50% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck a year ago, right? And back then, like, let's think back to last July 4th, and we were already talking about the price of everything going up, right? So if the price of everything going up, and I think about the July 4th thing because I think about the White House tweeting about the price of hot dogs going up like $1 or the price of meat going up. Like, this is over a year ago, we were already talking about the price of things going up. So now we're at a point, so that back then it was going up and we were at about just over 50, about 53% of people living paycheck to paycheck. Well, just in a year, that number's going up 10%. So that's a big move, right? Last month, we were at 58% roughly living paycheck to paycheck. So just over the past month, we have gone up 3% of more individuals living paycheck to paycheck. This is huge, right? This is huge. You can only make these logical assumption that the higher inflation goes, the more Americans are going to be affected by this. More and more people are going to see that living paycheck to paycheck is just kind of going to be a new thing for them, especially for the short term, right? Now, I want to let the cat out of the bag today because I think that a lot of people are like, oh, well, if this is only for low income earners, people that make six figures, they're not affected by this. False. That's absolutely not true. Of Americans earning $200,000 or more, 36% are living paycheck to paycheck. That's big, right? So when we look at it and we go across the board, you have to say, well, if this isn't just the middle class, the working class, all these terms that people want to throw out, this is also affecting people that make over $200,000 a year, 36% of them. That's a big deal, right? Another survey from Willis Towers Watson, a consulting firm, they stated that 36% of those earning over $100,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. That brings in more people, right? So we are seeing that this is not just a effect on middle class. This is not just an effect on the wealthy. This is not just an effect on the lower class. This is an effect on everybody. But why? Why do I bring all this up? Why am I even talking about living paycheck to paycheck? If that's just the new thing, why am I bringing it up? Well, that's what I want to discuss today, because I want to show you that a few minor changes can move you away from this fear or this outcome of living paycheck to paycheck. And I want to do that today. So I want to start off with what people are doing. What people are doing is what I want to start off with. And this is all going to tie in. And if you're watching this on the screen, you can see, get a little read ahead right there. But if you're listening on the podcast, that's okay. Everything's on the screen. I will verbally go over. But what are people doing? Well, the first thing that they're doing right now is they're starting to eat into their emergency funds. If they're living paycheck to paycheck, months that they just spend a little bit more than they earned, they're going into their emergency funds. And that's a problem because 25% of Americans have no emergency savings. I've done episodes on that, and I'm telling you, 25% of Americans have no emergency savings. So that's big. Roughly 25% have less than 3 months of expenses saved up in a savings account. That's my minimum recommendation. The minimum that I tell anyone to save in an emergency fund is 3 months. Like, you should have 3 months of expenses, and only 25% have that. Roughly 25% have 3 to 5 months, and roughly 25% have 6+ months of expenses saved in an emergency fund. So you can see some of those that are living paycheck to paycheck, any emergency at all could lead them to things like higher credit card uses, unable to pay for current debt. A lot of things, they start to take on additional debt just to survive, right? They get into this mindset of survival and they do whatever it takes. They rack up the credit cards, they rack up the personal loans, they rack up the loan advances, they rack up the paycheck advances. They go and they do title loans. Like, I don't know what when people get into survival mode, they do some crazy things with money, right? Others that maybe have some savings, some emergency fund savings, they're dipping into those emergency funds. They're trying to survive this inflationary period. They're trying to survive this recession. They're trying to do all these things while still paying their current bills, paying off the things they have. But to be honest, this is what most are doing as an American when it comes to this time and day. But and I know this. I know this because the facts show me. The facts show me that the average American savings has dropped $517 in the past month. So I know they're dipping into their savings. I know that because people are not just like, well, I just don't want to save as much or whatever. People are legit taking money out. Like the average, if people weren't dipping into this emergency fund, it would just stay where it was at. I'm not saying it would go up, but it would just stay where it's at. But we're seeing a $517 drop over the past month. Think about that. At that rate, the average American savings account could deplete by over $2,000 by the end of the year, just trying to survive. Just trying to survive. That savings account, emergency savings, emergency fund could drop by $2,000 by the end of 2022. That's a big deal. It's a huge deal. So this is troubling. This is troubling, and I'm going to tell you why, because I think that it doesn't have to be that way. Paycheck to paycheck living doesn't have to be your new norm. Regardless of inflation, regardless of anything, paycheck to paycheck living doesn't have to be your norm. Let me show you. So I find it troubling, and this is why. I'm going to shoot it straight because sugarcoating personal finances never works. So if someone tells you that you're doing great and you have $500,000 in debt, they're lying to you. You're not doing as great as that word means. Like, the word great has a meaning, and you're not doing great financially if you have 500,000 in debt. You could be making progress to get out of debt, and that's great, but the act alone of having that much money in debt is troubling. So I'm going to shoot it straight, and I'm going to tell you why I think living paycheck to paycheck in this current situation is troubling, right? Two things, and you can see them on the screen. Number one, because these are facts, right? These are facts. There's plenty of data. I don't have one source, I have multiple sources. Our society has a debt problem. Debt is a normal part of life. It shows you how being in debt, this paycheck to paycheck living shows you how being in debt disrupts multiple parts of your life, right? It brings this paycheck to paycheck living to fruition. Like, it grows paycheck to paycheck living, debt. Debt grows paycheck to paycheck living, right? It's the feeling when you pay off that car, you no longer have a car payment, that free money that came up. Paying off that credit card you no longer have to pay for every month. Paying off that medical bill that you no longer have to pay for every month. You see how when those things go away, your life is just, it feels better. You're more confident. You have that extra money. Debt ruins lives. Our society has a debt problem. Truly has a debt problem. Roughly 76 to 80%, depending on the survey, depending on the results, of Americans are in debt. And it's a lot. It's a lot of debt. So if we just look at auto loans, average household, $31,000 in auto loans. If we look at credit card debt, average household, $14,000 in credit card debt. If we look at any debt and you just take it all in, student loans, all those type of things, average household, $158,000 in debt. That's big. That's really big. So what I want to say is this. I want to say we as a society have to get our debt under control. We as a society have to get our debt under control because that is disrupting our life, and that is what's causing more and more people to live paycheck to paycheck. Number two, many Americans don't know how to live below their means. They don't. They have no idea how to live below their means. And you know what? Both of these facts are not financially driven. They are 100,000% emotion and behavior driven, right? Think about that. It's completely emotion and behavior driven. But Huffington Post article came out and said half of Americans are spending more than they earn, but don't realize it. And that's troubling. It all goes into why I find living paycheck to paycheck troubling. Because one, we have a debt problem. Two, nobody understands how to live below their means. So it just contributes to the debt problem. And that's troubling. That's troubling from a personal finance perspective, because I see clients come in and they know what they want financially. They know where they want to be financially. But the problem is that they've never had someone really sit down with them and talk about these emotions, talk about these behaviors, because both of these things are emotion and behavior driven. It's not about how much money you make. It's not about what kind of job you have. It's not about any of those things. It's completely emotion and behavior driven. So think about it. If you can change those behaviors, if you can change your behavior and your emotions around things like debt, if you can change your emotions and behaviors around things like overspending, all of your living paycheck to paycheck goes away, right? It all goes away. And I find this troubling, because if the overwhelming feeling of living paycheck to paycheck, if that can't help you control those behaviors, it's hard for me to say what will. If I've seen clients stressed out. I've seen clients literally on the verge of wanting to just break down because they're so overwhelmed with their personal financial situation. They're so overwhelmed with why they don't have enough money to make it to the end of the month. That's overwhelming. And if that emotion, if the emotion of not wanting to change your behaviors and change your emotions because of all of that overwhelmingness that's going on inside of you, is hard for me to tell you what's going to drive that change. What's actually going to make a difference to get you out of the mindset of thinking it's okay to have tons of debt, thinking that you never have to get rid of the debt, thinking that you don't have to live below your means. I don't know what's going to change it, right? I have no idea what's going to change it. But I know what many of you are thinking. You're probably thinking things like, how do controlling behaviors affect, like, they help me not live paycheck to paycheck? How what are you talking about? Wow, dude, you're so heartless, and for not to be compassionate for these individuals who are living paycheck to paycheck. And I actually think it's the opposite. From my side, I have seen people take drastic changes to improve their financial future. Right? So for me, I'm just being honest, because I've seen both sides. I've seen people that are living paycheck to paycheck make drastic changes, change their life, change their financial future. I've seen that. I've also seen people that are content with living with the way they are, complain about living paycheck to paycheck, not making any change in their life to do it, and then just complain some more, and then stay where they're at. It's just a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And that's the part that I really want to get to, because from my side, I have seen it. I've seen both sides. Most people, when they decide that they're not going to let the world control their finances, and instead they tell all their money where to go, and they say, I'm controlling it. I'm going to do the budget. I'm going to do everything that you're telling me. I'm going to do the basics things right. I'm going to get out of debt, and life goes on. Because the things that I've talked about, the debt, specifically the debt, that is you've accumulated the debt, right? It's now a fixed expense. You've got to pay that every month, right? So when emergencies happen, you're going to have to live paycheck to paycheck, because the simple fact of you having a mandatory expense affects how much extra money you have. Versus no debt, you tell all of your money where to go. Like, all of your money is yours to do whatever you want with. If you want to go spend it on whatever, it's your money. Go do it. Right? You're always thinking about your financial future, but if this month you're like, I just want to splurge, Well, just go do it, right? I'll give you an example. This when we moved into this house this month, we decided, you know what? We're not going to put as much into savings this month. We're going to cut back on how much we're putting into savings this month because there's things that we want to get for this house to just make it more homey, to make it feel better, to make it just really feel like our home, right? So we decided to do that. But for anyone that has a ton of mandatory expenses, they can't do that. They're going to constantly feel overwhelmed to the point that they just feel like this is the way it's going to be forever, and it's not. I'm here to tell you that it's not. So how do I mean that? How do I know that? I'm going to show you. You've got to control what you can control. You can't control how high inflation gets. I feel like I'm preaching, but I really want people to hear this. I really want people to hear this because it's huge. But you got to control what you can control. You can't control inflation. It's going to go as high as it's going to go. There's nothing you can do to control it at this very point. You can't control when your car breaks down. You can't control when a medical bill affects you. You can't control any of that. None of this can you control. But what can you control? Right? What can you control? Well, you can control how much you spend on bills. How much is your cell phone bill? Where can you cut that? How much is your internet? How much is your cable? Subscriptions, the Hulu, the Netflix. Do you need all of them? Do you need the stars, the HBO Max? Do you need all of that? What if you just watched one at a time? You watched all the shows on one, canceled it, or paused it, or whatever. They give you all these options now. Go to the next one. Watch all the shows on it. Go to the next one. Watch all the shows on it. What about your electricity? Do you leave your lights on? Do you have your AC at crazy temperatures? These are things you can control. You can't control all that other stuff, all that inflation and your car breaking down and all that. It's just going to happen. Murphy's Law is just going to kick in, right? Things that can go wrong will go wrong. And you have to expect that. That's what the emergency savings is for. But what you can control, do you leave your water running unnecessarily? Are you running up your water bill, electricity bill? All these things. Can you cut those things? And that's what I challenge you with. Control what you can control. What you do with all this extra money is not meant for you to now have extra spending money. It's meant to now start to pay off this debt if you have it. And 76 to 80% of the listeners out there, based off statistics, are in debt. So if we can use all this to get you out of debt, all of a sudden living paycheck to paycheck goes away. It all goes away. But you got to control what you can control. How much you spend on food, what you eat, where you eat, how much you eat. All of those things you can control. Activities you attend. Are they free community events? Or are you going to sporting events that you pay hundreds of dollars for a ticket? Are they whatever? Like fill in the blank. Or travel. Are you spending a ton of money on gas? Are you taking unnecessary trips? Are you not planning out your days? Are you not consolidating trips, right? Are you taking unnecessary trips that you can't afford? Living beyond your means. Number 2, that we talked about earlier, 50% do it and don't realize it. All I'm saying through all of that, all I'm saying is you have the ability to fall into a trap of living paycheck to paycheck because you don't address the things you can control. Instead, we focus on the things we can't control. Like, man, I'm living paycheck to paycheck because of inflation. No. I'm living paycheck to paycheck because I don't make enough money. No. I'm living paycheck to paycheck because fill in the blank. Tons of reasons people come up with of why they're living paycheck to paycheck, never addressing the true problem. 1, they have too much debt or mandatory expenses. 2, they live beyond their means. That's why people live paycheck to paycheck. It has nothing to do with inflation. It has nothing to do with emergencies. It has nothing to do with any of that. Those things will happen. If you can get your debt under control and live within your means, meaning earn more money than you spend, you will not live paycheck to paycheck. You will not be dreading, when am I going to get my next paycheck? The problem with most is that they don't want to make the changes. It's easier to complain about inflation than to make sure that for the extra work that it takes to go and cancel one subscription to start another one to watch, for the extra work it takes to cook a little more at home than just eating out, the extra work that it takes to to, you know, call the utility company and figure out how can you get a lower rate on your cell phone or your internet, whatever. That takes extra work. Instead, they continue to spend money where they always have, and then they just complain why there's nothing left. And that's true. That's true. More and more people are doing that. But what I want to tell you is you're in control of your money. You're in control. Don't live above your means. Don't think you always need to buy new things. Don't live in homes you can't afford. Don't drive cars you can't afford. Live within the limits of your income, and you will prosper. I'm telling you, you will prosper. So I truly hope that you see what exactly it means. I hope you see that changing your behaviors, changing your lifestyle will lead you to never living paycheck to paycheck again. Well, will you have a month that comes up that you struggle a little bit more, that you can't save as much, or that you can't do as much as you wanted to? Sure, it happens to all of us. It happens to every single person. Are there times when you may have to dig into that emergency fund just to be able to survive that month? Sure, absolutely. But that's not the same as living paycheck to paycheck. That's not every single month digging into an emergency fund to survive. That's not that. So I hope you see, if changing your behaviors, changing your lifestyle, you have the ability to no longer live paycheck to paycheck. This is something that so many people struggle with. The impactful thing is that once you get it under control, you will realize that you didn't need everything that you were getting after all. You didn't need to eat out all the time. You'll probably feel better, a little more healthy, right? You didn't need all those subscriptions. Like you didn't even realize that you turned them off, right? You thought about it for a couple of weeks and then it went away. You change your data plan on your cell phone and it doesn't cost as much now, and you're like, man, I don't even use that as much. More conscious. I just use the Wi-Fi when it's available. Things your brain just starts to realize I didn't actually need. And then the greatest part is that these simple changes will move you forward in life financially. They will put you on track to where you want to be financially. When I'm working with clients, it is those people that make these type of changes that quickly start to see changes in their finances. They almost get addicted to this financial future. They start to feel it and they see it a lot quicker, right? If you were trying to lose weight and your goal is to lose 10 pounds, if it took you 6 months to lose your first pound, and then after that you lost a pound a day, most people would give up before they lost that first pound. They want to see instant results. So the more direct approach you take to this, the more committed, the more addicted you get to doing this, the quicker it's going to happen. Now, if you are ready to take control of your finances and ensure that you are on the right path to whatever your financial goals are, what I want to tell you is I want to be there to help you get there. I want to help you take care of whatever it is that you need to take care of to put you in the right direction. I will be a financial coach to you. Head over to thefinancialmirror.org, hit book now, and schedule your free consultation today. Finally, if you do want to give an extra dose of support to the stream, head on over to thefinancialmirror.org/shop and pick you up some awesome Financial Mirror gear. All of that gear out there, super comfy, super cozy. Pick it up, wear it. Phenomenal products. You will love it. I truly appreciate every single person tuning in today. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, comment, share this information with every single person that you come across, because the more and more people out there that we can get to just talk about personal finance, to see the real side of personal finances, the better and better our communities become. If you're listening to this on a podcast, leave that 5-star review, and on Apple Podcasts, leave that written comment, as both of those go a long ways in helping getting this information out to more and more listeners. So till next week, continue improving the one thing that you can control, yourself. Peace.
Well, that wraps up today's Financial Mirror. Join us next week as we continue to work on ourselves, change our mentality, and to commit to achieving the success we always envisioned. Regardless of your platform, Help us grow as a community. Please like, subscribe, and share with the people in your lives.